Hey there, welcome to episode 126 of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 2:48 p.m. on Friday, July 25th, 2025. July 25, 2025. Today's title and topic, Data Chaos. If you are new to the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program, well, let me tell you, the Cafe Genius is a project I began in 2022 when we first launched the Pitch Workout Room. It has become essentially the wrapper around deep dive and consideration and examination of our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the Greater Vegas area and beyond. Why limit yourself to one place? And so the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program is about such things and the people making them happen. Those are the impresarios. Cafe with two F's, an homage to the Cafe Centro. I mean, it's a real word. Cafe Centro, where startups start in San Francisco, in the South Park area, very near then AT&T and now Oracle Ballpark. It's where companies like Twitter got their start, although surely there are better, possibly less well-known examples. I've often said that Vegas needs a few Cafe Centros around. There might well be. Genius for smart people. A very small number of people have asked if the Genius lunch came from this, but it was quite the other way around. So Cafe Genius includes a reference to a place in the San Francisco Bay Area where startups start, and a lunch in the greater Las Vegas area where people making startups happen would meet up and chat. So both of these things involved collaboration and interaction, which I think are good things. And so we should do that with the impresarios, the cool people with cool ideas, making cool things happen. Cafe Genius Impresarios, here you are. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary, which I will read to you, and the links for today's episode. There are now 3 shameless self-promotion links, and I will have a small amount of detail on that, and then a reference to an old article in the Review Journal from 2023 that is topical. So let us begin the summary of today's episode. Chaos is a strong word, but many headlines, claims, and even strategic and impactful decisions are based on data, and I'm speaking in the context of the Greater Vegas area, and we do not, and the world, and we do not always know where it came from or when, and a smart city should be smarter about that. And that is a reference to the Greater Vegas area, although it could be a reference to many places. The links for today's episode include those 3 shameless self-promotion links. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo is a profile page with links to my various audio programs, my projects. There's some biographical information at the top. There are some affiliate coffee bean links if you're interested in supporting yours and my coffee habits. The affiliate links are to Amazon. They add nothing to the cost if you choose to buy anything there. They're just the beans that I drink myself, some of them. And a few other affiliate links for things I actually use. You are welcome to click on those. You are under no obligation to actually hand me any money through the buymeacoffee.com platform. You can find the weekly Buy Me an Update audio program at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts. It is published on Mondays. It is 5 minutes or less. It is a very brief rundown on the previous week's audio programming and any news and announcements upcoming, formerly exclusive to the Buy Me a Coffee platform. No longer. There is a Buy Me an Update Spotify channel. And so there will be other RSS sources where it will be found and so on. I literally set this up on Tuesday. As you may or may not be able to tell, I'm getting over some sort of a head or chest cold or sore throat, whatever was happening last Friday, so a week ago. But we're coming along, so you'll be able to find Buy Me an Update in the world and on buymeacoffee.com. Same goes with Coffee Solo. So I'm only including a link to the posts. You will find the Coffee Solo audio program at ko-fi.com, fi.com/danhugo/posts. You will also find a corresponding Spotify audio channel, and so it too will make the rounds through other RSS sources and so on. So both of these platforms will be generally available via RSS feeds, just like all of my other programming. Finally, though, you don't have to spend any money at Ko-fi.com either. Finally, let me get some water. Finally, the reference I mentioned, Las Vegas is number one. That's not the headline, but it's a Review Journal article from 2023 when Las Vegas was ranked number one for early stage startups in the United States. Is that amazing or what? It sounds like it. We're going to talk about that. So I'm only providing that one example today. I'm getting over a fever illness of some sort last weekend, which I had a few days of which has had a few days of recovery in terms of productive coughing and other post-chest cold-ish symptoms. So this is not a lengthy deep dive episode. That said, I have covered a few of the elements of data and data sources in previous episodes of this audio program. If you have heard more than a few episodes, you have probably come across these. If not, there will be a sort of refresh as we look at what sorts of data are available contemporaneously, so in the future, at that time. These sorts of things can change. They do change. And they should change. So merely saying, I talked about data is like saying, I talked about the weather back in January. Yeah. I have selected one reference example to claim that Las Vegas was number one for early stage startups across the US, which actually made the media of record here in Vegas, which is a rarity. So that is a bit of hype tip-off right there. I'm sure, I will guarantee somebody from this city said, hey, you should publish an article about this. So first of all, we were number one of group two. What? And I'm not deep diving into this because I already have, but it's a good example. So the study was conducted by Crowdfund Capital Advisors, which should at least raise an eyebrow. Wait, crowdfunding? What? What sort of study is this exactly? Well, as it happens, the author, or at least one of the people involved in researching and then publishing the study, so his name was on it, was in on a video call for one of the periodic in-person breakfast meetups the city was hosting at the time. They may still do it. I don't even know. So we could get the scoop direct. It is critical to understand that this was not a deep dive study. Rather, 15 cities, and this is in the Review Journal article, they do refer to this fact. 15 cities selected from a pool of cities that were not anywhere near Silicon Valley or a few other of the hottest of hot spots. Now, they do point out Austin was number two. That should also be a question mark. Why is Austin number two? Austin probably has more startups, maybe not the same early stage startup metric dominance. It's hard to say. But they were number two. Might be worth looking at that study, but that takes time. So let's just look at the headline. Thus, this was a selected group of tier 2 localities, not Silicon Valley, not New York. Tier 2 localities compared, insert some hand waving and shoulder shrugging, and Vegas comes out on top. This is wonderful, I think. A really smart expository speaker and debater I knew some time ago. Shout out to Rabbi Pear, who I believe is still living in Israel. Had an expression he used often. I hope this doesn't offend anyone since I've kind of called him out here. It shouldn't. This is totally normal. I have quoted or paraphrased him often, this particular expression he would use, and I'm paraphrasing it here. Study results are like a bikini. What they reveal is fascinating. What they conceal is vital. Sources and agendas. So where's that headline coming from? With the push into economic diversification, no doubt getting a bit more attention with the alarming dip in tourism Vegas is experiencing now, and I'm not diminishing that. The fun economy is something I think is worth protecting from unnecessary risk, as I have stated many times, though I do think the trademark effort was sort of silly, though the trademark was granted in February of 2025. So congratulations once again to Bo Bernard over at UNLV for driving that through. Mission accomplished. And so that's now, to be totally clear, because as I wrote this, it may sound confusing now that I've read it. The headline I'm referring to in the Review Journal is from 2023. Now, with tourism down, I think for June it was down 16%, which is alarming. That's a big dip. economic diversification efforts will get a little bit more attention, right? Sorry, I'm a victim of Alexa Plus, which didn't trigger anything, so that's good. Anyway, so now that tourism has taken a nice dip, the economic diversification topic will be getting more attention, which is fine. I'm not attacking that notion. But it is important to know that there's good data, and then there's just data that feels good. And we should be aware of what we're hearing and what's getting the hype, because we'll get more headlines about what I've referred to from 2023. We'll just get that more so now. That's my concern. Sources are either going to be studies or data aggregators or both. And let us be honest, do people really follow up on those sources and comb through them? Sometimes, rarely. The headlines about early stage startups back in 2023 sure did not emphasize that the selection was limited to 15 cities and was a second tier group, which is not bad, but this was not completely clear in the hype. So the headline makes it sound like Vegas is just number one across the board. It's not actually true. The studies and the reports that come from them are usually biased in a variety of ways. That's just the nature of, that's how that works. And then we have the way that they are presented to an eager subset population, such as on LinkedIn. All of your LinkedIn connections will be very excited by this headline. Vegas is number one? What? That's amazing. It's awesome. I knew it. This place is going to blow up. Remember how drinking red wine and eating dark chocolate every day was great for heart health? You should read that study. Not true at all. But the headline sounds good. The data aggregator side of things can also be biased, or maybe it's just not being maintained. If I have a single introspective survey of the so-called tech startup community in the greater Vegas area, and I refer to that data for a couple of years, maybe even 5 years, is that data anywhere near valid? Probably not. I question the validity of data portals like Deal Room, for example, which aggregates data about the so-called tech startup scene in Vegas, and data maintained even by UNLV and its affiliates if those responsible for maintaining and publishing these data are conflicted in any way. Look at which organization is operating the Deal Room instance for Las Vegas, for example. Conflict of interest. I will point out, and I didn't really investigate this much, but when Mo Collins referred to the Deal Room data in the ecosystem study from, was it April of 2023? It might have been coincidentally published with that other stuff. It was a great time for Vegas, getting all kinds of good news. I think the Deal Room number was showing something north of 2,000 startups, which sounds nice, I suppose. Now I just looked at it very briefly today, and it's closer to 1,000. Now, this is the sort of thing that someone should say, wait a minute, did 1,000 startups, or whatever the number was, did something over 1,000 startups just disappear? Did they all shut down? Did they exit? What's going on there? But instead, they just, probably what happened was they cleared out the numbers, the cruft of companies that were in there for however many years without being updated, or whether they still exist or not, who knows. So you just refresh the books without doing any of the double entry. So if there was ever an audit, someone at some point might just say, oh, we deleted those. Well, okay, you deleted them because they were not successful here. You just adjusted those numbers and can now make claims on a different set of numbers without justifying, like, it's bad news if 1,000 startups failed, but it's good news if there's 1,000 startups. So something to think about. We need to think in terms of systems. If you would be so kind, one critical factor to understand when looking at focused data studies and the reports and conclusions drawn from them, they are focused. Suppose all data suggests that tech startup environment in the greater Vegas area is growing at some noteworthy rate. Is that investment growth, revenue growth, job creation growth, economic impact growth, or does it even matter? Growth, baby, growth. But nobody mentions that the cost of living is rising as a result of this and placing the fun economy workforce at risk. They are having to move farther and farther away, and our public transit system doesn't support getting them to work in a useful or timely fashion. That's an example inspired by Austin. I've talked about that in a previous episode. That actually has happened. They will be priced out and the fun economy may suffer. Does that show up in the tech scene numbers? Maybe not. We don't really need to suppose. We can look at the F1 debacle, Formula One races, debacles, plural, back to back in 2023 and 2024, and how the headlines were mostly about the turnout and success and financial wins for the big properties on the strip and along the track, along the course of the race, somehow leaving out the impact on small businesses from the time construction began to well after the races had ended. The shiny parts get a lot of attention, as is usual here in the Greater Vegas area, while the system itself does not always come out so clean and tidy, the system being the local small business ecosystem, a subset of the overall entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, if you like. The shiny parts get a lot of attention, while the system itself does not come out so clean and tidy. Those lawsuits, we'll cover those in the news later. The losses, the material losses to small business, okay, those will get headlines some other time, but we're really excited by the winners. If you have no idea what I'm referring to, maybe the news should include those less than shiny parts. They should. And they do, sort of, later. It is possible, I wrote it is possibly, I don't know what's going on there. It is possible, if I could type, there we go, even better. It is possible to view the overall entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem as an analog to a biological ecosystem, hence the name similarity. It's not my idea, it just works. With one of the important take-home messages that an ecosystem is interrelated, it's interdependent on itself. Ecosystem. And one of the reasons you have an ecosystem is you can essentially draw a circle or sort of a bounded region that encloses an ecosystem, and it essentially, obviously there's some sun and other inputs, but everything in that ecosystem has some sort of impact on everything else in that ecosystem in some way. With one of the, everything's interrelated. Okay, so resource availability, carrying capacity, climax communities, symbiosis, all things we have covered previously, and all important to consider if we are looking at the system as a whole, which we must. If we cherry pick the parts we want to value, we can become quite excited by good news and can ignore what we can sometimes consider to be terrific bad news. Terrific as in, very. And even if that bad news seems like no big deal now, whatever is suffering for that good news in the near term may yet to leave its full dent on the system itself. Increasing costs of living by way of economic diversification efforts, and the upside for property owners, that's exciting and good. Yay, look, housing prices up, salaries are going, everything's going up. It's amazing. We really are the next Silicon Valley. But the downside for the fun economy over time and the people that power it, the people that are employed within it and make it go, is, and then they will be priced out. And again, Silicon Valley, eventually you had to live in another state to work in Silicon Valley in any sort of hospitality or service industry. Good luck. It wasn't that bad, but it was not great. The downside is the fun economy, though, and it's one example I've used frequently. There are many examples. I also use my Volkswagen example, so I will do that here. When I was 16, I got a 1970 Volkswagen Bug. It was slightly older than me. That's how I roll. The person that we got it from lived down the street. His name was Chuck Ballou. I'm going to guess he's no longer with us, but who knows? He owned a German automotive repair shop of some sort. It was literally a hole in the wall, a long walk from where we lived, because he lived right down the street. He had this old Bug, so we got it from him. He checked it out, certified, and so on. So I would go to his little shop there and get some mechanic advice. They would let me stand under the car on the hoist, and they would point at things and so on. Very educational and very nice of them to be so helpful. So when I went through the new engine adventure, his advice to me was this: I see people put in new Volkswagen engines because they're cheap. You can do it; it's fine, But they build these engines without considering the whole system. If you look at the original Volkswagen engine, you could put the gas pedal on the floor and it would generate a maximum amount of horsepower, and that was it. It was built to be air cooled, so it had maximum range of operating speeds and temperatures and so on. There was a whole bunch of factors, but they were all sort of considered, and the system was built so that it would be easily maintained. No need for water cooling. So when you put in a new engine and you haven't done all that work that the Porsche people did back in the day, you end up with engines that run louder and hotter and noisier, and they don't last as long and so on. So he said it's really fun to put in some big rockers to get the valve timing different, and your engine will make a lobbing, blah, 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 blah. He said that's fun. It's fun, but it's not efficient and it's not as good. So you have to consider the whole system. And same applies in spades, like 100 or more times over when you're considering local economies and the people within them. So how about some open data? I believe I referred to this specifically in a few previous episodes, but Code for Vegas was initially founded around an effort to deploy an open data platform here in the city of Las Vegas in cooperation with Code for America and, of course, City of Las Vegas. Thus, around a decade ago, that happened, and today there remains an open data system in place in Las Vegas, grouped appropriately along government, geocommons, and other areas, with the Metropolitan Police Department moving all of theirs to a related open data platform, and so on. All of this stuff is hosted on ArcGIS. If you're familiar, great. If not, they don't make it super friendly for normal people. But LVMPD, there's geocommons data, there is the city financial data published, the open government, is it open checkbook or something? Anyway, so all this data is available. I've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again as our stuff starts to become something. Code for Vegas would be rebooted in January of 2022. Yeah, that was a seminal time. Cafe Genius, Code for Vegas Foundation rebooted. Some other stuff. Good times. 2022, post-pandemic. I was among the group of people who did so. We were rebooting Code for Vegas as Code for Vegas Foundation, production by a street. And it still exists today, of course, as Innovate for Vegas Foundation. I am the managing director, as I have mentioned previously. I think I have. Have I mentioned that? One of our initiatives is the Open Data Capture Platform, which is only designed so far, to bring back those days when data could be captured and published in novel and useful ways. That was sort of the driving force behind the open data project here. So there's a lot of open data, and it does still get updated sometimes. If the existing open data sets are updated every once in a while, maybe months and years between those updates, are they valuable? Well, yes, they're valuable, but are they as valuable? Are they leaning into a stale data situation where data just languishes, but it's there, so it's considered useful until it's updated? Really, there should be a lifetime limit, as in a total time to live. Like, this data should be considered stale 6 months from the time it's published, something like that. Whatever the data is, and it should depend. Population data probably has a shelf life. Traffic data in Vegas is probably valid for about 10 minutes. What is true, the team of one, Anthony Willis, is that right? I'm not going to look it up. Anthony with the City of Las Vegas, I believe he's still working. He is the team driving data. I think he's in the GIS group. So he's managing the open data sets and incoming updates and so on. The data is actually updated by third parties. So they may get data from the business licensing divisions of different cities, because they do aggregate multiple cities for that one. Administrative boundaries don't really change so often, but if those were to change, they would probably come from Public Works, maybe? I don't know who would manage that. I've actually tried to find that out. It's not easy. Many pieces of data in the open data sets do have data ownership affiliated with them, so sometimes they're just the city. But there is one team member, a team of one, responsible for this stuff, which means there are practical limits to what can be done at what rate to maintain current data, which, I mean, much less adding more to the new data set. So this can just basically limit the utility of a data set collection or library. if the data sets are only updated as time and resources allow. And there's enforcement of data quality and so on. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into managing an open data set from a municipal partner, such as City of Las Vegas. So if someone like the federal government is doing that, great. But if it's just the will of the populace, hey, we should have that open data. Yeah, okay, we'll get to it. Who knows? I don't know what their motivation is. I'm sure there's motivation. I just don't know if it's coming from the electorate or if it's coming from good ethics or high utility from who knows. Production by street. All that said, the ability to access data about the ecosystem, about resources, about physical infrastructure, and so on, with transparency concerning data origin, update timelines, and so on, is already a part of the open data scheme. So we don't really have to invent any of that. It's just sort of part of the idea, part of the infrastructure, part of the deployment, and so on. So and this was a notion driven by the federal government when that effort commenced. So this was back during the Obama administration. Keeping the notion of transparent data and data access is a good idea. It is something we should all be interested in, though it rarely makes the news. Open data could power some news, by the way. If there was more open data available in useful ways, news articles and ongoing news topics could refer to open data sets, especially as they change over time. Open data does not remove bias, but it does increase transparency, which is valuable. I've spoken about this quite a bit with a vital entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, vital being like maybe virile. It needs communication tools, a community calendar, for example, and bridges across silos, especially here in Vegas, which is highly siloed. Different parts of the geography and different groups of people. Both of the ecosystem study reports I spoke about 3 weeks ago or so say the same. Communication, the need for common resources to share information, especially calendars. It's a common gap found in many places attempting to be the next whatever, fill in the blank. The next Silicon Valley, the next, the next LA, the next Hollywood. Silly idea. Information awareness in the modern era is possible and important. The Open Data Capture Platform initiative I mentioned will see the light of day as part of the MyMuni and Welcome initiatives, also part of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation collection of initiative efforts, which are basically human interface platforms for smart cities like Vegas or anywhere, ideally. All of these are works in progress, and of course, as they become useful, they will appear as topics here on this program. They're sort of entrepreneurial, even though in their development phases, they're not intended to make money. If someone deploys these open source tools in a monetized deployment, that's an actual business, and most definitely a topic of discussion for this audio program. In the meantime, where does data come from? Who is pushing it? And who is benefiting from it? All things we should be aware of and keeping an eye out for. If I may paraphrase Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller fame, Las Vegas is a place built on the inability of people to do math. Maybe, but we should start with good data and build from there. And that is where I'm going to leave it for today. Oh, my time says we're just over 30 minutes, so that means it'll be just under 30 minutes when I truncate silence and so on. Maybe I'll try to fill it out, keep it close to 30 minutes. But thanks for listening. Hopefully I'll get over this cold. I mean, I'm over the cold. Hopefully the lingering symptoms will dissipate and we'll get back to normal. I have lots of work to do. I have too many ideas. I don't know if I've given a proper after action on the Zero Labs interaction. I would not waste my time again with that. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I would really like to interview some people who have gone through there. This will have been the 5th cohort early in July. See if those are actually going anywhere. I'll tell you what I don't appreciate is that they appear not to have anticipated any sort of success, whether they have some or not. So it is profoundly difficult to learn about what they're doing, who has been through the program, what their successes have been, and so on. It may as well not exist. So if you're going to have this program and tout it, you should make it something that people can see, unless it is intended to be secret. And then who cares? Transparent can win. We've already seen that. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening as always, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye now.